Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Dr. Sarfraz Jeraj. I'm a clinical psychologist, so I work in the NHS part-time, and I'm a lecturer in psychology at the University of Surrey. So first of all, thank you very much for taking the time out to be here. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be invited to be here with you. And given that you've sacrificed, this part of your Thursday evening to be here, it's only fair that we set something up so that you walk away with something. So my prayer, my dua, inshallah, is that there's something for you to take away from here. It might be new, it might be something you already knew that maybe you weren't putting into practice. So hopefully we can do that today. Now, as I stand here, I kind of feel there's a distance between us. So I'm wondering, should we get everyone to move their chairs and come closer towards the front? No, hold up. But before you act, that would be one option to reduce the distance between us. What would be the other option? For me to come closer, right? So I want us to bear this in mind, because as we go on, sometimes as we go through challenges and situations in life, we want everyone to change. The world needs to change. They need to do this differently. They need to do that differently. But sometimes the answer lies within us. And maybe there's something we need to do to bridge the gap between where the world is and where we want it to be. So, in terms of this next, I think approximately about 25 minutes, what do I want to try and cover? Zain, do we have a clicker or anything? No? Yeah. What I'd like to go through is just trying to answer some of these questions. So what is mental health? It's been kind of a fashionable thing for a little while now. So some of you may well be quite familiar with this. But hopefully we'll try and reinforce your understanding and build on it. We'll look a little bit more specifically, because this session is part of a double header. So you're gonna see more of me next week if you decide to come back. So today we're going to be focusing more on depression. Next week we'll be looking at a number of other kind of mental health related issues. Then I guess, given that we're here in an Imam Bargad, we want to look at it from an Islamic perspective and maybe explore this question about, can a Muslim really be depressed? Can a practicing Muslim with Iman really be depressed? Shouldn't Iman be protecting us from all? So that'll be something that'll be really useful to kind of get your perspectives on. And then I guess maybe we'll wrap up with something that we can put into practice as we walk out of here, from tonight even, in terms of what can make us mentally healthier. Now, I wanted to couch all of this discussion in a little bit of context, again relating to where we are. We're in a place where we've just heard. What did we just hear? Ziyad al-Ashura. Yeah. What does Ziyad al-Ashura do for you? Yeah, this is going to have to be interactive. I'm not doing this all by myself. What does Ziyad al-Ashura do? Spiritual, right. So there's something about our ruh that's just been fed. It's just been nourished. Now, our ruh is an entity that responds to spirituality, to spiritual nourishment. But does it respond to things in the emotional realm, in the cognitive realm, in terms of our thoughts, in the physical realm? Does it? No? So, if I give you a nice, because I know you was nodding your head, so if I was to give you a nice bacon sandwich, yeah, really nice sizzling bit of bacon, is that going to affect your ruh? It is. So the physical realm does affect us spiritually. The emotional realm does affect us spiritually. The kind of things we look at affect us spiritually. It's not just what we look at, It's how we make sense of it. So all of these things give us a good rationale for why we don't just want to be physically healthy, why we don't just want to be spiritually healthy, but why we want to be mentally healthy in order for our ruh to flourish. Yeah. Please stop me if you've got any questions. If you've got any comments, it'd be really useful to kind of benefit from your experience as well. So let's try and use physical health as a bit of an analogy to help us understand mental health. So how many of you are feeling pretty physically healthy right now? No, a few snivels. Okay, yeah, we've got some. There's one champion right here. I mean, he's got short sleeves basically, so he must be healthy because it's kind of nippy here. So we all know what it's like to feel physically healthy and physically unhealthy. But do we know what it's like to feel mentally healthy and mentally unhealthy? How do you feel when you're feeling mentally healthy? Happy, yeah. So that's a sign of feeling mental. Every day, hopefully, as soon as we wake up and we see someone, especially a fellow Muslim, what do? We say, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. So it's that salam, it's that peace that actually represents being mentally healthy. Happiness is a transient state, yeah. But contentment and peace, now that's a state you can work towards regardless of how happy or sad you might be transiently. So hopefully this not only illustrates kind of an example, an analogy between mental health and physical health, but there's also something important about this line. Anyone got any thoughts about why it's not one or the other and why it's a line? There's a connection that goes from one end to the other. So we all are sometimes one, sometimes the other, but sometimes we can be in between. And we can be at a million places in between one end or the other. So I guess what's important to recognize from this is that we all move on this continuum. It's normal for us to be in different places at different times. The world, our lives, our situations affect us so that we feel different things at different times. And that's quite normal. It's part of our fitrah to be blessed, to be able to experience different emotions. Let me give you an example of what might sometimes be considered poor mental health and see, is there a benefit? Is there a wisdom in that? So anger, being angry, is that good or bad mental health? Bad. Now, in the face of injustice, do you ever feel angry? Yeah. So anger itself isn't the problem, it's how we channel it. It's what we do with it. If we use our anger to just scream and curse, then actually it's not doing us or our ruh any good. But if we channel that into positive action, if we channel that into defending the oppressed, to standing up to tyranny, then actually that's going to do our ruh, ourselves, a world of good. So we want to recognize that we can be anywhere along this and that we can move. The one thing that, particularly as Shia, is deep within our theology is choice. Different to some other schools of thought that say, everything is planned out for you. Now we know the Creator has planned everything out for us, but what we don't know is what He's got planned for us. The fact that we make dua means that there's some role for choice. And if you think about the fact that you're here now, that was a choice you made. Whether you decide to listen to me, whether you decide to get up and walk off, it's a choice. And those choices can influence where we are along this. So, in answering this question about what is depression, depression may be one of those examples of feeling mentally unhealthy. And I want you to start off with a little bit of a self-assessment. These things sink in a little deeper if we're able to reflect. So ask yourself, in terms of your mood, how are you feeling right now? How motivated are you? So what are you doing? You're listening to someone. How motivated are you to listen to that someone? Are you really interested? Yeah? Now, you could be listening to the same lecture on another day, but your level of interest might vary. So this is just one indicator of that mood part that helps us understand where depression is. And when we're feeling more depressed, guess what happens to your motivation? It's low. You don't want to do anything. Yeah? The things that normally you feel interested in, that you enjoy, they're just not doing it for you anymore. Physically, you might just not be bothered to eat. Or, actually, you just be eating loads and loads and loads. A lot more than usual. Noticing that belt's getting a little tighter. Sleep. Might be sleeping too much. Or, the opposite, just can't get to sleep. Just lying there. Why can't I get to sleep? Why can't I get to sleep? Thoughts going round and round and round. And energy. You know, even if I do sleep, well, I sleep 14 hours, I still get up, I'm still tired. So I'm just putting these up for you to reflect on where you are now, because inshallah, if you slept well, that's a blessing. That's a blessing of positive, of a healthy mental state. And if you're not, that gives you one indicator. That doesn't mean that you're depressed, but it just gives you an indicator that, you know what, maybe this part isn't going as well as it could do. What goes on in my mind? The kind of things you think about. How negative is the things you're thinking about? When you came in here, I mean, this is my first time in here, and I'm like, mashallah, this place is awesome. Yeah, I was like, oh, you know what? It's a little nippy. So that was one negative. But what's my emphasis on? Am I just like, oh, this place is useless because I'm a bit nippy, or is it? Okay, it's nippy, but you know what? It's beautiful. It's got this history. It's got this atmosphere. The people are so like not falling asleep just yet. You know, there's interest, there's passion for people who are here, and this place has incredible potential. So when I look around, what do I see? See, our brains are set up to do two things. They're either taking in information from the world around us, or they're doing something with it. They're making sense of that information. And both are subject to being positive, negative, or balanced. I'll come back onto that a little bit later. So just something for you to reflect on. How much negativity is there in your thinking? And how much, I've got this other word, rumination. So rumination kind of is linked to, you know, cows. Everyone know cows here? Yeah, I know we're all urbanites, but milk does come from somewhere. So cows, they'll chew the grass, it'll go down, but it don't stay down, it comes back up. And it comes down, and it goes back up. They keep doing this as part of their digestion. Now for them it's healthy. When it comes to negative thoughts, they go away, but they come back. They come back. We go round and round and round. And that can be really corrosive, and I would say it's almost the equivalent of being poisonous. Negative thoughts just going round and round and round. This is something you might notice in yourself. This is something you might notice along with these other things happening in other people you love. Depression. We all feel sad, don't we? Hands up if you never feel sad. Okay, I need to do it the other way around to make sure you get exercise. Hands up if you do feel sad. Right? Again, this is part of our fitrah. Yeah? There's one dude here who does not feel sad, but we'll have a word later. So it's part of our fitrah. It's a natural emotion. It's actually a blessing. When you recite Ziyat Ashura and you understand the pain that the Ahlul Bayt were put through, naturally you're going to feel sad. So what's the difference between feeling sad and feeling depressed? Well, two key differences for us to keep in mind, because I think where mental health is becoming a bit more kind of well understood, we want to be careful about getting our balance of it clear as well. And that the moment you feel sad, you don't start thinking, hey, am I depressed? The moment I'm feeling a little bit shaky, hey, do I have anxiety? We want to try and get the balance right. With feeling down, if it's lasting for now days, it's taking over most of my day. I'm feeling it most days of the week. This is now spilling over it, not just a couple of days or a couple of weeks. This is going on and on. Now I'm starting to get a bit of an indication that actually maybe this is more depression. This isn't just kind of sadness or disappointment. And it feels intense. Yeah? Some people might experience it in terms of any of these symptoms at a high level of intensity. Feeling so upset you might become tearful in private, or you might even not become tearful, you just become numb. And it's starting to affect what I'm doing it on my day-to-day basis. It's starting to affect my relationships. It's starting to affect my ability to study or get to work. Or just being able to kind of look after myself. Yeah? Just being able to kind of shower regularly, brush my teeth, do my hair, etc. Having done this self-assessment, this isn't something I want you to share. I just want you to hold it in mind, because if you're not experiencing much of these, you need to say, Alhamdulillah, that it's a blessing that I'm not experiencing these. And if you're experiencing some of these, then actually there's something for us to look forward to now in terms of what we might be able to do to help. Many of these, you might not recognize it in yourself, but you might, if you look closely enough, see it in someone around you. Depression is known to affect 1 in 5 people at some point through their lifetime. That's a huge number. That's probably about at least 6 people here, maybe 7 people. So when we're feeling this way, we might mask it very well, but there may come a day when all is done and you're raised from the dead and you'll be asked, did you look out for your fellow brother and sister? Although they were masking it, if you really loved your fellow Muslim brother or sister, your fellow human, were you looking out for their distress? Were you supporting them? We'll come back onto that. So, I think I've gone over this, so we'll skip this. Right. Now, can a Muslim be depressed? You need to help me out here. You can. Okay. I'm starting to have a bit of a problem with that. Well, surely if my iman is strong, then nothing can touch me. Is that not right? Yeah. So if a Muslim has true iman, he shouldn't get depressed, right? Sorry? To a certain extent. So your iman can play a protective role. Anything else to it? Any other thoughts? Brothers, you need to step up your game. The sisters are running this. So let me hit you with a couple of thoughts. That the way you feel may not be totally in your control. The way you feel may be a consequence of what's going on around you. You ever lost a loved one? Anyone in your life die? Yeah. That's not in your control. You might have lost something really important in your own life. You might have lost a job, your prestige, your health. These things aren't always in our control. And it may be quite a natural response for that to affect you. We're not machines. We're humans. And our responses are often part of our makeup, part of our fitrah. We were created with them. If we could choose never to feel down, we probably would choose that. So if this is part of our creation, then whether we're a Muslim or not, It's there for a reason. Now, I'm not claiming to have all the answers, but it's something for us to consider because it has a huge impact on how we might judge each other. How do we know the tests that have been sent for us? Which one of us is really tested? Then who knows? All of us, thank you. Yeah. And in terms of the degree of test, do we know anything from our faith about the degree with which we'll be tested? Yeah, those with the biggest shoulders, those blessed with iman, those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, will be tested. That's what we know. How we're tested, we don't know. But who's to say that we won't be tested with our wealth, with our family, with our health? And when it comes to health, who's to say that that testing of our health has to be physically? Why might it not be emotionally or mentally? And if that test has come from the Creator, then who are we to judge to say this person has a choice and they should or shouldn't feel this way? However, a test comes with an ability to respond. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't test us with a burden that we can't bear. We are blessed with the tools to deal with the burden, with the strength to bear that burden. However, we sometimes fall into the trap of just looking for those blessings in a particular place. Where do you look for your blessings? Sorry? In family? Friends? In our success? We often locate the blessings within us. I should be strong enough to deal with this. But just as has been mentioned, sometimes our strength is around us. In our friends, in our family, in our fellow mu'mineen, in our fellow humans. So let's hit the next slide. Can we really say that someone is low in iman if they're struggling with their mental health? Can we say that there's a deficiency in their ruh? Is there another way of making sense of it without playing judge? We are not the judge. There's only one judge. And if there is only one judge, they're not just looking at the person who's struggling, they're looking at everyone around them. What are you doing to help? What are you doing that's maybe even making it worse? Sometimes there can be a stigma that, this person's struggling because of their sins. How do you know? Who's making the judgment? And if you're going to play judge, surely you're competing with the real judge. So we need to be quite careful about the judgments that we make. Every emotion is theorized, and I'm just talking from sort of psychological theory, to have a function. So fear, what might the function of fear be? This is my tag team partner right here. Yeah, fight or flight. Yeah, so we all have this mechanism that detects danger, and we experience fear, so that we can get away from that danger. If you're walking down the road and there's a huge truck coming towards you and you don't feel fear, well, you'll just be chilling and you might get run over. But if you feel the fear, you've got that energy, you move away. It's there to protect you. It helps you survive. So fear has a function. Sadness may have a function. Depression may have a function. Often, when people become depressed, everything stops for them. And it may be an opportunity to reflect on what's going on in my life that might have got me here. One of the most beautiful things we have emphasized in our faith is the ability to reflect. Now, sometimes that reflection is done very well personally, but sometimes that reflection done with trusted confidence, family, friends, can help you think about what's going on, what's up with my life. How can I live a more purposeful being? Help me set the kind of reset button. Maybe I've not been on this rat race too long. It's not satisfying me. I'm not peaceful. I'm not content. So it can actually be a trigger for our growth. How many of you have actually experienced adversity in a way that you've come out stronger from? In a way that's taught you lessons in life, that's made you a better person. So sometimes those tests are put in place to get the best out of us. When everything's easy, relaxed, when we're in our comfort zones, we don't really grow. You can grow superficially, but real growth comes from enduring discomfort. So we don't want to have to push away discomfort all the time. We want to recognize that this is part of how we work. And I've talked about the test for others and who makes the judgment about whether someone's being weak or not. You know what, just I know you're feeling down, but just allow it. Just get out of bed. Just come into work. Right, if it was that easy, they probably would have done it. It's great to be encouraging. How can I support you? And sometimes just being quite patient. Hussein, by the way, my hypothesis, positive thinking, is that he's making notes on this. So, like I said, no one actually chooses to experience that level of emotional pain. No one chooses to think negatively all the time. Yeah? These become habits that we fall into. But the importance of recognizing that it's not a choice. No one wakes up deciding to hate themselves, to feel so weak, to become so isolated. They might make choices that they feel compelled to, but it's not a choice that anyone would want to make. Yeah. You could choose to be happy, so let's all just choose to be happy. I guess with all of our feelings, there might be some degree of choice that we make in the moment, but actually it's much more about our lifestyle. And they're the choices that we make. As humans, it's quite, we love instant gratification. Yeah, I want this, so I'll do this, and I expect to feel this way quickly. Yeah? I mean, I'm wearing this jacket, and although I look a little bit hench, my biceps really aren't what I'd like them to be. If I want big biceps, I can't just pop a pill. I'm going to have to work it. I need to go to the gym. I need to do those codes. I need to put in the effort. So choices, short-term, medium-term, long-term choices. But ultimately, if we're in this position, when we're in the position, there's probably been a host of things. People are saying and doing hurtful things. Yeah, there's maybe things going on in society. I'm struggling. My benefits have been cut off. Now they're making me do all these assessments and tests. I'm not being trusted. They're making fun of me as a Muslim. All of these external pressures. But ultimately, when it comes to ourselves, we can't have control over those things. We might be able to influence them, and that might be a better way to focus and channel our energy, but ultimately the thing we have most influence on is ourselves. So let's move on to thinking about that a little bit now. What helps? What can help with our own well-being? How do we make this congruent with our faith as Muslims and how can we use this understanding to support brothers and sisters around us? So let's hit the next one, Hussein. So the four-legged chair. Now, I don't know if you can see this projector screen. What's this projector screen on? A table. What's keeping the table at the height that it is? It's the legs. So I want to use the level of this table as a metaphor for how we feel, our kind of emotional health, our mental health. And you could say that, okay, this is fairly healthy. It's maybe not as healthy as it could be, but it's not flat. What's keeping it at the level it is? So in terms of our lives, we want to think about the four legs that are relevant to us. And each one of these legs represents the activities that we do in our lives. The first leg is the things that we do that give us a sense of achievement. Anyone share an example of something that gives you a sense of achievement? Sorry? Getting a high grade, yeah? So maybe studying or just working. And I can't emphasize this enough. 9/10 of ibadah is earning a halal living. Yeah? There's something deeply spiritual about that. So the things that we do. Now, earning a halal living, for me, in my stage of life, might be going to work. But for someone else, it might be studying. For someone else, it's raising a family. So we all have the scope, the opportunity to do it in our own ways. So we need to be doing something every day that gives us a sense of achievement. The second leg, connection. We weren't created to be sitting in a cave by ourselves somewhere. We were created as social beings. Now sometimes it can feel difficult to want to socialize, to want to say hi to people, to mix with them, to be in their company. But it's fundamental, and my prediction would be, each and every one of you here, if I put you in solitary confinement for a week, guess how you're going to feel? Down, depressed. You might enjoy it for the first day, have a bit of me time, but it's part of our fitrah, it's our need to be with others. So having that opportunity to connect. The third leg, enjoyment. Doing things that we enjoy. Anyone share an example of something that they enjoy doing? Sports. Yeah? And this can, I think, and certainly in my experience, can be maybe a bit more of a taboo in kind of our communities. What do you mean enjoyment? You should be doing something constructive. Now, if normally I'd try and role play it a bit, but this looks like it's quite expensive, so I don't want to risk it. If we had this achievement leg and we were doing lots and lots of achievement and it was getting higher and higher and higher, what would happen to the table? It becomes unstable. So we need to be doing something, and our faith allows us so much in terms of what we can do to have fun. So we don't want to neglect that as an opportunity and as a blessing. And I guess you could, because we've got 4 legs on this table, you could have the last leg, which you could say, making sure we're doing things that feed us, that nourish us spiritually. So what kind of things do you do that give you spiritual nourishment? Salah, yeah? Now, you can pray Salah like and walk away and you're not feeling no different. Yeah, you just feel like ticked, one off the list. Or you can engage with it in a way that really does feed you spiritually. Now, Salah is often quoted as one of the things we do, inshallah, 5 times a day that feed us spiritually, that actually contribute to the stability of our mental health. But what about playing sports? Is playing sports spiritual? Glory, glory, Man United. Is that spiritual? So I guess whether it's the connections we have when we're having dinner with our family, is that spiritual? When I'm at work, I'm marking assignments, is that spiritual? See, the thing is, all of these things depends on our niyyah. What am I going into it with? Before I step on the football pitch, what if I said Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and reminded myself of the mannerisms, the sportsmanship, the competitiveness that I'll engage with? What if when I'm at my dinner table with my family, rather than just like, don't eat that piece of meat, bruv, that's mine. Save me that chicken wing. What if we said Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, conscious that we're in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How would that affect our behavior? When I'm marking those assignments, I like this student, I'm going to mark them up a bit. This student's annoyed me. They were rude to me last time, I'll mark them down a bit. If I said Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, would I be aware of my ethics? And so we don't have to break it down into a separate leg for spirituality. You don't just have to rely on salah for spirituality, but each and everything we do can be spiritual. Now, we're only human, and that level of spiritual intensity varies. And sometimes we can feel like giving up. I'm not feeling it today. But that's fine. Continue to make the niyyah, and when you take one step towards your Creator, what happens? Persistence. It comes with persistence that your Lord who loves you will take steps towards you. So, just real quick now, I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes. In terms of the balance, today, what did you do that gave you a sense of achievement that you could make more spiritual? Who did you connect with today? What did you do that was enjoyable today? What did you do that was purely focused on spirituality? And how can you make everything you do spiritual? Whether you're in the hippodrome, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, at school, wherever. And are you getting those done in balance? Who is it you haven't spoken to in a while? That you really love and they love you? It's creating that bit of time and space. So, physical health, are we eating what's halal? That's going to have an impact on our spiritual well-being and our mental well-being. And I guess we're talking about eating the right amounts as well, and eating the right kind of things. So, I'm not here to talk to you about diet, but I think you'll get the idea. What about using my body? My body is a blessing. How am I using it? Am I using it to its potential? I've got muscles. How many of you know how many muscles you've got? And of all those muscles that you've got, how many are you actually using? Now you might find out if you just spent 5 minutes just stretching every day. But as you stretch, you're getting exercise, which helps stimulate appetite, which helps healthy sleep, and all the while you're grateful for every muscle that you've got, so you've got gratitude. And making sure you rest adequately. What drives you? Now, you can see I'm a fan of BMWs, but that's not really what I'm talking about. What do you wake up to live for? Are you just going round in a circle? Home to school, to dinner, to home, to school, to dinner, to work? Or actually, is there something else? If I can borrow on a friend here, Hussein. My man gets to work, and he's driven by the community. He's here, putting his energies in. He's getting that one hand out. He's waiting to hear where's that other hand coming back to hear that clap. He's driven, yeah. And in your own ways, you need to be clear about what's driving you, because when you've got something to live for, then you're less vulnerable to depression. And I'm just going to end by sharing this story of Viktor Frankl. So, Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Vienna, in the 40s. And he was running a successful practice. He used to work in the local hospital, and he just got a nice bit of post because he was writing a book, so this is the first manuscript before publication. Abrupt knock at the door while he's having breakfast. He gets a rifle pointed in his face. He said, "You've got 2 minutes to get everything that's valuable to you in the back of this truck, otherwise everyone gets shot." He was having breakfast with his elderly parents, his pregnant wife. He doesn't know what's going on. Just as he turns around to get his stuff and get his family, he notices there's a little pin on the person's badge, on their coat. It was the Nazi secret police. He was being targeted because he was a Jew. He gets everything in the truck. They cross several borders. They get to a concentration camp. It says Auschwitz on the outside. He gets separated from his family. They go in one queue. They get gassed because they're no good for manual labor. He gets put in another queue. They shave his hair. They take everything away from him. They burn his book and his clothes. He gets given a uniform, and he gets a number tattooed on his arm. In about 24 hours, Victor has had everything you can have taken away from you, down to his name. Victor engages in concentration camp life, and he notices there's two groups of people emerging. One group of people keep looking for kind of bits of wire or something to wrap around their necks to finish themselves. He notices another group that keep running after that first group, trying to stop them and talk them out of it. And he said, "What's the difference between these two groups?" He said, when I spoke to them and tried to find out their story, he found out that the group that were trying to finish it, they couldn't see outside of the barbed wire fences. They were convinced that this was it for them. So he asked the other group who were trying to stop them, he's like, "So what do you see in your future?" "I see myself getting out of here one day. I'm going to see my daughter. I'm going to get back to my home country. I'm going to fulfill this project. I still have something to do." And they could see beyond the barbed wire. Victor himself looked into his own mind and he said, "When I close my eyes, when I'm faced with this oppression and tyranny, I try and go to that place where I'm in a nice lit theatre, much like this, talking to people about the human psyche, sharing my understanding with them, because that resonated with his purpose." So you can see from an example of someone in such awful conditions, some of the worst a human can experience, that actually it's that purpose that can pull you through. And when it comes to feeling down and depressed, actually that purpose, that hope, is something that can guide us through, take us through that dark night, that dark year. What it also emphasizes, and this is what Victor also says, is they took everything from me. They took my family, they took my identity, they took my name, but the one thing they couldn't take away from me is my choice. And I get you to reflect on, even in the last moments for Imam Hussein, they'd taken everything from him. They took his family, they took his companions. They took everything, but the one thing they could never take away from him was his faith and his choice that I'm not going to give bay'ah. They couldn't take his dignity. He didn't give in to the end. We all have choice. I started this lecture, this session, by talking about, hey, there's an issue here. The gap's really big between us. What should we do? I'm most in control of the choices that I make. And despite how insurmountable the challenges around me might feel, the one thing I've been blessed with is a choice. Even if I can't act, I have the choice to say. Even if I can't say, I have the choice to feel, to think for myself. And if this is something we can hold on to, if we can be clear about our purpose and be clear about the fact that we have a choice, then inshallah we'll be able to make much more use of the opportunities and the blessings that we have and protect ourselves from ill health, physically, mentally, spiritually, and actually be healthier. So, I think I'll wrap it up there.
Is there any questions for the doctor? There's a mic there for the sisters. I think the brothers have a loud enough voice. So if there's any questions, please go ahead. The mic's there.
So I'm going to take that as a signal that you've all got so many questions that they can't all possibly come out right now, and maybe you're saving them for next week. So, okay, we have one question there and one question there. So can I invite the sister to share a question first, and we'll come back to you.
First of all, thank you for coming today. And my question is, you know how you said some people can mask that depression? So to be there for our fellow sisters, let's say, how are we able to do that? Like, to a certain extent, I've managed, but I don't know the rest. Like, they've masked it so well, and they've got into a really, really bad state, and that's the only time I've actually realized that they've been suffering for so long. So what are the signs we need to look for when they always look happy, they're always smiling, like they look like the happiest people you'll ever meet in your life? Yeah. So how are we able to actually know that they're actually hurt or
It's a good point. I think that's the thing about a mask, is someone can wear that mask so well that the whole point of it is to disguise it from us. Now, we might try and look for clues like, this person's not coming as much as they used to, hanging out with us. They're not showing themselves in the same way. You can see some of the cracks. But if they're masking it so well, you're not going to see it. The one thing we can do is make it safe for someone to be able to take the mask off. And sometimes you can do that by just kind of normalizing and maybe even disclosing yourself. Say, you know what, I'm not happy all the time. Or, you know, when things are tough, just to feel open enough to say, you know, yeah, things are tough at the moment. Saying that something's difficult isn't a sign of weakness. It's an opportunity to recognize that, hey, maybe this is part of a test, and this is something we can reach out. So I guess as a community, how much are we feeling unsafe to take the mask off? Because of a fear of what? Judgment. You're weak. So I guess this is an endeavor for us as a community to be able to say, you know, it's okay to talk about it. Rather talk about it and get some help and support early than it deteriorates further and further where it's much more intractable. I don't think there's a particular day or something, but I think what's most important isn't necessarily just how I'm feeling. So for example, Arba'in, you know, from the 1st of Muharram all the way through, we carry that sadness in our hearts. But does it stop me from serving my family? Does it stop me from going out and earning halal living? And that's what we want to think about. You know, you have a death in the family. You know, take a few days off. You know, allow yourself to come to terms with the sadness, mourn. But if you recognize, hang on, yes, it's been a couple of weeks and maybe stretching into a few months now, then that's where you might want to think, there's a bit more to this. And if I've tried to use all my resources and dua, see, one of the things about dua is, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer your dua when you start helping yourself. Why should you say, okay, do it, and then it's done? No. Make that dua, make your efforts, and reach out to the blessings not just within you, but around you. Talk to people that you trust. And for all of us, make it easy for others to talk to us, to make ourselves trustworthy. Isn't this the sign of a spiritual, a wholesome Muslim community where we feel that we've got that trust in each other, that we're not going to judge each other. And it's not just about putting your hand in each other's pocket to take out a bit of money. It's about to put your hand into each other's pocket for a bit of warmth, for a bit of company. Thanks. Brother back there. I think you raise a realistic scenario that that happens to people, and I think where we want the world to be in a certain place, we want someone to be in a certain place, and they're so far from it. The urge is even stronger to just move, get out, start doing things, start speaking to people, and actually that can be the least helpful thing to do. So consider the high jump. Anyone here do the high jump? I mean, I've got a stereotype that hijabi sisters don't do high jump, but maybe, yeah, okay, thank you for breaking my stereotype. So, as you're running up to the high jump, the bar's right up here. How do you start feeling? I'm not going to make it, so don't bother. But if we set the bar real low, then actually you're like, yeah, I can do that. You help build up a bit of momentum. Let's say your car breaks down. You're not going to start pushing it at 50 miles an hour. You start with that initial bit of movement. So set the bar really low. And the best way you can do that is filling your heart with compassion. And one of the things I always try and do, I don't know if this is copying a little bit from the Christian tradition. You see on the back of their cars, what would Jesus do? What would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do in this situation? If he was with a friend, if he was with someone that really wasn't doing much, would he just try and yank them out, or would he be gentle with them, be loving with them, patient with them, one small step at a time? I'll give you one follow-up and then I'll come back to this sister. Well, I don't think anyone's ever become depressed from getting too much love. Having said that, I think when someone always gets something their own way, some people think that people end up with mental health problems maybe because they've had really hard experiences in life. Actually, sometimes it's people who've had the best early life experiences and they expect everything to be fine. They don't know what it's like to have resilience. So I guess even in the way we show our children love as we're raising them, we want to allow them to experience a little bit of difficulty. Yeah. Just like the immune system. If you never allowed a kid to pick up a peanut off the floor and eat it, their immune system just doesn't develop. So they need opportunities to do that. And I agree with what you're saying from that point of view, that maybe there's something about connecting with what gives them strength. And one of the best things is gradual exposure. I know it's hard for you to come out, but the nicey thing will just be, okay, if it's hard, then don't worry, don't come out. But actually, what if we just go out for a little bit and I'll come with you? Maybe we won't even go all the way. And you know what, if you want to turn back, we'll turn back. But at least it's got the person going in the right direction. It's getting the ball rolling. Sister?
So if you have a mental health condition and say like on a daily basis you're dealing with triggers that make your mental health worse, like a particular situation, maybe even like an individual, what can a person do to kind of like confront that trigger without kind of it breaking them, basically?
It's a tough one, and especially in our relationships. Sometimes our relationships and sometimes the people we love most can be the most painful. Yeah, and it might not necessarily be someone that we love, but I'm just saying it's often the case. And so our desire is always, if only they stop doing that, if only they stop triggering me, then I'd be okay. Now, if I keep trying to make them change in that way, depending on the state of my heart, depending on where my ruh is, it's going to affect my behavior. Depending on my intention, if I want them to change for me, it might pollute the effectiveness with which I can actually influence them. If I was to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, my interaction with you, my attempt to influence you isn't for the sake of me, it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It might put a slight twist on how I do it. But this isn't transactional either. If I'm truly doing something to try and enhance someone, I'm not doing it because I want it just to be better for me. That might be a bonus. But if it helps them get closer to their Creator, then actually I'm sitting here with less expectation. We're human, of course we're going to have expectation. But ultimately, we have most control over ourselves. So sometimes, you can influence the person who's calling you a stupid Muslim Paki every day, your neighbor, as much as you want, but they're not going to change their mind. So what do? Well, then it's about how I'm making sense of it. It is going to be distressing. It is going to trigger me. It is going to make me feel sad. And I'm not saying that actually we're going to be able to stop that. But if we can turn the volume down on it by saying, you know what's the hikmah in this? Why is this happening? How is this linking to my purpose? Each and every one of you are sitting in Golders Green right now in 2018. Why was your ruh put in your body right now? In the circumstances you're in. There's a purpose. And if we can tap into that, it might help us make better sense of our suffering. Suffering in and of itself isn't the challenge. It's how we deal with that suffering. Now, we don't want to give up, and I'm not saying you give up changing the world around you. Inshallah, when Imam Mahdi comes, he's not going to be like, well, let's just cope with the world around us. He's going to be out to change the world, to bring justice. But it will come through internal revolutions. So that would be my invitation to you, is don't give up on changing the world around you. But remember, you're not in control of the world around you. There's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. You're just judged for the efforts that you make in trying to do that with the right intention, and saying, if that's going to happen, how am I going to make sense of this? Does it have to mean something negative about me that actually brings me into a spiral? Or actually, is this part of my test? I think we're going to have to wrap it up there because of time. But I just want to appreciate all your questions. Please forgive me if I've said something that hasn't been useful. If it's helpful, please feel free to catch me at the end for a quick word. Otherwise, inshallah, I'll see you next week, and we'll talk about a few other kind of mental health related issues, and maybe try and equip ourselves with a few more tools that will help us with that, and inshallah, ultimately, with our spiritual growth and our journeys towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.